You might not know it, but before the hit AMC show The Walking Dead ever aired, there was a series of comics, which of course the show is derived from. However, not all the characters from the comic and the show share the same fate, as fans of both are all too eager to point out at any given opportunity. So today we are discussing The Walking Dead characters who outlived their comic counterparts, and those who didn't. So stay with us. Let's jump straight into it then. First up, it's Shane. As fans of the comics will well know, Shane is shot in the neck and sadly killed in issue 6 as walkers invade the camp. In a quite gruesome turn, when Rick learns of how the walkers are formed, he digs Shane back up to put an end to any notion that he may come back to haunt him. On the show, Shane is given a reprieve and sticks around until the end of season 2. He also makes a return in the 3rd and 9th seasons, but Rick's former best friend turned nemesis, played by the excellent John Barenthal, is actually killed by Rick at the end of season 2. The pair's heated rivalry finally boils over, with Rick stabbing Shane in the chest. Shortly after, Carl kills the zombified Shane, which again is slightly different to how it all went down in the comics. Next up, we're talking Dale. Stay tuned. In both the comics and the TV show, Dale was one of the more moral characters. However, he wouldn't be around long as the show bosses decided to axe him way before his ultimate demise in the comics. The show also didn't go into his relationship with Andrea, which fans of the comics noticed was conspicuous in its absence. In the comics, Dale died after the prison storyline where he lost his leg. The way he dies in the comic is actually the same as how Bob Stuckey dies in the show. Bob is dragged underwater where he is bitten by a walker, then stabbed in the head to prevent reanimation. In the show, Dale succumbs to a walker whilst out on patrol on Greene Farm. What did you guys make of the difference in Dale's death in the show and the comic? Rosita is up next. Don't go anywhere. In contrast to the comics, Rosita is actually still around in the latest season of TWD. In the comics, once she reaches Alexandra, she slowly moves into a secondary character role. She also dates Eugene in the comics, which again is different to the series as she dates Father Gabriel on the AMC show. As we all know, in both the comic and the show, she becomes pregnant after cheating with Sadiq, but in the original comic, she is killed whilst pregnant. Her head is then removed and placed on a spike to establish the Whisper border. But as fans of the TV show well know, she has survived well past this point, which fans of the actress who plays her, Cristina Marie Cerritos, will be delighted about. We're talking Carol next. Stay with us. Another TV character who would outlive her comic book counterpart by a significant amount of time is Carol. Although there is quite a significant difference in age between the two versions, they both start off the show and the comic in relatively the same place. However, as comic Carol offered herself up to Walker due to the fact she convinced herself nobody liked her, TV Carol went in quite the opposite direction. On the show, Carol proved she could be an important part of the group by honing a versatile skill set, which meant she was invaluable to the group. This specific character change began during the prison arc and has transformed so much she is now integral to the show. So much so that she is actually set to receive her own spin-off show. Who's your favorite character on TWD? Andrea is coming through next. In contrast to the previous two characters we've discussed, Andrea didn't stick around on the TV show very long. In the comic book, Andrea would go on to marry Rick. However, given the fact that she is around too long in the show, Michonne takes it upon herself to find the Andrea-shaped void in Rick's life. In the show, Andrea is only around until the 3rd season as she is bitten by a walker on the neck. After the fall of Greene Farms, she is separated from the group and ends up in Woodbury, where she shacks up with the governor. As she attempts to bring both the groups together, she is bitten by the zombified Milton, unfortunately for her. What did you make of Andrea's short stint on the show? Let us know below. Next up, it's Sophia. Like Andrea, Sophia wouldn't be too long for the TV world either, as her mother Carol was able to survive and thrive on the show. The same cannot be said for her daughter. As the group are about to arrive at Greene Farm in season 2 of the show, Sophia would go missing, with the group scrambling around in search of the youngster. She would be found later in Herschel's barn, having already been consumed by walkers. In the comic books, Sophia was actually orphaned after Carol's death. She is then adopted by Glenn and Maggie and is still around at the very end of the comics, marrying Carl in the process. What do you make of Sophia's premature death on the TV series? Glenn is up next. Stay with us. Whilst the TV iteration of Glenn would outlive the comic comic book version of himself, it wouldn't be by much. His death on the show is actually the most similar to its comic counterpart out of anyone on the whole show. As you will remember from the comics, Glenn is taken out by Negan after a particularly unsettling game of eeny meeny, in which he selects a member of the group at random to murder. In the show, Negan actually kills Abraham in this way, but Glenn isn't far behind him. He dies in the same episode in which Negan kills Abraham in response to Daryl attempting to kill Negan for his atrocities. Glenn's death happened at almost the same time as it did in the comics, which isn't often done in the TV show. What do you make of the similarities of this one? And now, it's Judith Grimes. Stay tuned. The TV version of Judith outlived her comic book counterpart by quite some way. So much so that in fact she actually made it to adulthood, where she became a functioning member of the group. In the comic books, Judith is actually killed as an infant. Having only recently been born, Lori is holding on to her as she attempts to escape the governor's attack. However, she is shot in the back quite callously by Lily Call. Sadly, Lori falls on top of the infant Judith, smothering her by accident. Lily quickly realizes the errors of her way, and her actions dawn on her. She kills the governor in retaliation. What did you guys make of the difference in both the comic and TV show surrounding Judith? We're talking Jesus now. Don't go anywhere. Similar to Game of Thrones, the TWD creators are not scared to off a fan favorite. This is of course evident in the death of Glenn and later with Jesus. In the comics, the character would survive right until the end, but on the show, Jesus, played by Tom Paine, would meet a sinister end after being stabbed at the beginning of the Whisperer conflict. Whilst we saw Paul, Jesus, Rovia survive and even flourish in the comics, striking up a close personal relationship with Aaron, the same cannot be said for his TV show counterpart, who is deemed surplus to requirements in season 9. What do you guys make of Jesus' death during the Whisperer conflict? Give us your thoughts below. And finally, we're talking about Carl Grimes. Stay right there. Carl Grimes meets his grisly demise in the 8th season of the TV show, and with Judith not being killed off like she was in the comics, she was able to somewhat fill the sizable void left by Carl when he was bitten attempting to save Sadiq. Carl has maneuvered himself into one of the most prominent characters in the comic book, so his demise in the TV show came as somewhat of a shock. He had attempted to help Sadiq against his father's wishes as he saw that there was a good person in there somewhere. However, it would ultimately lead to his downfall as Carl is bitten on the torso as he attempts to save Sadiq's life. As the realization of what lies ahead dawns on TV show Carl, he decides to be the master of his own fate by shooting himself in the head to prevent his reanimation as a walker. What did you guys make of the discrepancy between the TV show and comic book variations of Carl Grimes? Let us know what you thought below. As always, thanks for dropping by today, and remember to tune in again next time when we will be discussing more cool bits and pieces. And why not do us a solid by liking today's video, whilst also sharing it with any Walking Dead comic book or TV show fans you might know lurking on those social media accounts.